come from a very good upbringing. My family had it very good and I never had to be without anything. I try to give back as much as possible. I donate a lot of money to the poor and charity. One of the things that I am the proudest of is that every Christmas I volunteer my entire day at a local homeless shelter. I try to make sure that these much less fortunate people have as good a day as possible. I stay in the shelter overnight and leave the following morning. One of the sadder things about working in a shelter is seeing the same people there year after year. I mean, I guess seeing them makes me happy that they are not dead. But it would be nice if most of them were able to get themselves a place to live and not have to be homeless anymore. Last Christmas is one that I will never forget. The day and evening went as well as it could. There was this one guy that I had never seen before, and normally I wouldn't have even thought much about that. But he was very annoying and very rude. At one point, he even tried to take the food away from another man. Now, the rules of the shelter were that I was supposed to remove the man from the shelter for such an act. However, I couldn't bring myself to do that. Not on Christmas. Instead, I separated the two men and let the guy know that any further aggressive behavior would result in him being removed. The rest of the day and night went fine, as far as I was aware. However, at about 3 a.m, one of the other homeless guys came into the office. He told me that one of the other sleepers had been stabbed. I ran out into the area, and sure enough, the man who nearly had his food stolen had been stabbed, and he was dead. I turned on the lights and searched around for the guy from dinner, and he wasn't there. I checked the bathroom, and the window was open. He had killed the one man and then left as quietly as he could. The most horrific part of this was a man losing his life over something as simple as a dinner. Even worse, for me, was that the man would likely still be alive if I had followed the rules and removed the man during dinner instead of letting him remain. Because it was Christmas.
One night, when I was a teenager, my mom went out to visit her sister while my dad was working the night shift. After she left, I had the house to myself for a few hours. I did my usual teenage things of taking a long bubble bath, putting on my PJs, listening to music on my stereo and reading in my bedroom. I heard a strange sound at the window, some tapping and scratches, but as we had a few trees and bushes against the front of the house, I didn't pay much attention to it. Then it got louder and I thought I saw light go across it. I was too scared to check it out and tried to convince myself that it was just the trees blowing in the window or an animal scurrying along the windowsill. After a while it stopped and I forgot all about it, until all of a sudden my mom blows through the front door and runs down the hallway screaming my name, calling for me and asking if I was okay. "Chill out, Mom. I'm right here," I replied. Completely out of breath, she said that had seen someone running from behind the trees and that the security lights we had on the front of the house by my bedroom were strung out in the middle of the yard, facing away from the house, as if someone didn't want to be seen. I put on some clothes, and together she and I went outside to explore. On the windowsill was a screwdriver, duct tape, and a butcher knife. Chills went through us as we realized what had been left behind by someone who had obviously fled after he saw a car pulling up the street. We called the cops. They took a statement and examined the window. There were a few stripped screws and multiple wood shavings as if someone had tried to pry the window from the frame, as well as finger smudges on the dust, where someone had recently touched it. The cops said that 2 teenage girls had recently been sexually assaulted and strangled. Well, one was murdered, but the other survived. She said he'd worn a ski mask so she couldn't identify him. Thank goodness my mom arrived when she did. If not, I might not have been around to post this.
About 7 years ago, I got an invitation to attend my cousin's dinner party. I have never seen my cousin before and only spoke to him on the phone. I was surprised that his family unexpectedly invited me after all these years. The invitation had an uncharted address that the GPS was unfamiliar with. I used a map and pinned its location. As I was driving, I realized just how far I ventured off from civilization. Trees after trees, farms after farms. Where the fuck am I going? I finally found a similar address. That might be it. Approaching the house, I noticed how dull and dreary it looked. It was completely engulfed with leaves and branches. This can't be it, I said to myself. As soon as I entered the rocky driveway, my aunt and uncle came out to greet me. They seemed excited and welcoming, Walking into the house, I asked where my cousin was, answering immediately, "He went to run a few errands, he should be back later." We spent the whole couple of hours talking about my mother and family. My aunt made delicious homemade pot roast that I finished off in minutes. After dinner, we played an enduring game of Uno. It was surprisingly fun and competitive. When we finished Uno, it was almost dark, and still no sign of my cousin. Regardless, I had to leave. It was getting very dark, and I would have trouble getting out of this dreadful place. My GPS was ineffective, so I asked my aunt and uncle the most efficient way onto the highway. They gave me a puzzled look. "We thought you were staying the night?" I told them I couldn't, because I had work the next day and couldn't afford to miss another day. "It's much better if you leave tomorrow morning. Trust me, you'll get lost," they said. I shrugged it off and told them not to worry. I'm an adept navigator. I could get out the Sahara Desert. Looking aggravated, they strongly advised me to stay the night for my own sake. At this point, I was getting pissed and irritable. I sighed, "Fine, I'll stay the night, but I have to get up early for work." Both of them seemed strangely ecstatic that I was staying the night. As soon as they went to go get my bedsheets and pillows, I ran out the door and got in my car. I hastily pulled out the driveway. It took me a while, but I found my way out that depressing place. I got home an hour later than expected. It was 11 and I didn't want to wake my parents up. Climbing my fence and entering the back door, I noticed the kitchen lights were on. As soon as I took my first step in the door, I see my mom sitting there looking impatient. "Where were you?" she asked. "I was at Aunt Deborah's, you knew this." "Then why did she call saying you never arrived?" Till this day, I never knew who I visited.
Shortly after Christmas, when I was 11 years old, my dad, mom, my brother, 2 sisters and I were near Snoqualmie Pass, about 50 miles east of Seattle. Waiting in line near the top of Mountain Slope was a girl with a new red circular saucer. Compared to my black, smelly inner tube, it was high-tech. I never saw anyone fly so fast down the mountain before. I continued to watch the girl as I made my own way down at less than breakneck speed. Most kids stopped shortly after the slope flattened out, but this girl just kept going and going, and then she disappeared. I swung around quickly to my left, to my right. Everyone else around me was getting up and trudging back up the hill, but I didn't see the girl. She had been right in front of me, and then she was gone. No one believed me. I insisted I had seen her disappear, and we can't just walk away. Come back. Help me look for her. Still, no one believed. The snow was wet and heavy that day. Off the beaten track, I soon found my boots sinking deeper and deeper into the snowpack. It took a full minute to cover 10 yards, but I would not stop. Looking carefully, I could see the slight depression where the girl's red saucer had flown across the surface of the snow. Scattered alpine trees stuck their heads out of the snow just ahead of me. I looked back and realized I was well off the beaten track. But I knew I had seen her go this far. My heart stopped when I found the dark hole. There, in front of me, the saucer's track stopped. I lay on the snow with my head sticking out over the hole. The second I heard her crying, I started yelling. "Are you all right? Don't worry. I'll get help. I promise. I'll be back right away." I didn't have time to go all the way back up the slope to my parents, so I accosted the first adult I found and breathlessly told him my story. He started yelling, and other adults came running. Someone crawled up the slope, and within minutes, someone else was running toward us with a rope. I led everyone along the path I had taken earlier. It took a while, but eventually a very wet and cold girl was fished out of the creek 14 feet below the snowpack. She was reunited with her father, and all was well again. For a long time afterward, I pondered why it was so hard to get anyone to believe me. I also have often wondered, what would have happened if that Christmas I were the kid who got the new red saucer?
Our group all gathered by the fireplace to welcome in the new year with all our intentions and goals. It was so nice to be surrounded by best friends. Some would even venture to call them family at this point. Members of the group kept glancing up at the clock, and the glowing red numbers read 11:45 p.m. Perfect, right on time to ensure they could welcome 2024 together. "Chris, who many in the group considered the leader, cleared his throat to indicate he was ready to speak. It took a couple times before all the side conversations turned to whispers and finally ceased completely so he could continue. "Hello all. Just wanted to welcome you to our New Year's Eve party. As best friends, and as what some would even call their family, I can truly say there is nowhere I would rather be than hosting this group at my house. We all have big plans for 2024, and I can't wait to watch all of us tackle all our dreams. Please help yourself to the food and drinks. They're here for you to enjoy to the fullest. Go back to enjoying yourselves, and in 14 minutes we'll all count down and welcome the new year together." All the people in the hall began to chat excitedly again. They were all looking forward to welcoming the new year together with the people they loved. This hopefully meant they would have a very happy year ahead of them. People danced, smiled, and laughed. The excitement for midnight left a heavy feeling in the air, but in the best way. The group continued this way while enjoying food and drink, never taking their eyes off of the clock for too long. As 11:59 p.m. appeared on the clock, Chris once again cleared his throat to indicate he was going to speak. An excited stillness overtook the crowd much more quickly this time. "To our group, the sons and daughters of Sam, it is time we do what we were always called to do. It is time to make the streets run red with blood and enjoy human flesh, torture, and our heart's deepest desires. The way our gods, Dahmer, Bundy, Gacy, and Fish, and all the other saints we worship would have wanted us to. Disperse and remember, even if you get caught tonight, you are killing the innocent for a greater good, so our gods do not get forgotten. In the serial killers throughout history's name, we pray. Now let's show America the true carnage and beauty the sons and daughters of Sam can create." The group quickly exited the hall with their weapons of choice as they went to carry out the vision of their gods. They would make sure the names that were cemented in serial killer fame now would forever be